Okay, so we're done with the primary controls. Let's move to the next classification. Sorry about that. Next one, we have the secondary controls. Well, technically, if we have primary, then this time we have secondary control. Okay, so the first secondary control is, oh, by the way, ano yung pinagkaiba ng primary sa secondary control? So, ganito yan. Primary control, again, we have discussed that this is a key control wherein ito yung pinaka nagmi-mitigate ng risks na in-identify mo as compared to the secondary control wherein hindi siya ang main source mo for you to mitigate yung risks. Hindi siya key control. Hindi pwede. Secondary lang siya because it helps the primary control to be effective and to be adequate enough. Okay? So the first secondary control is compensatory, or we call it mitigative controls. So as stated here, may reduce risks when the primary controls are ineffective, do not reduce risk to an acceptable level. And an example here are supervision and then monitoring. So, parang gulo, no? So, ganito yan. So, pag sinabing compensatory or mitigative control, example mo, yung primary control mo, assumption natin, ineffective siya. So, pumalya yung primary control mo. Now, you have a secondary control na pwedeng mong maging reliance. So, kumbaga si primary control is your first gate, your first control, unang makaka-mitigate nung risks. It's just that, again, hindi natin totally ma-eliminate yung risks dahil meron tayong residual risks. Kaya, meron tayong secondary control na compensatory. So, if the primary is ineffective, pumalya, meron kang sasalo. Kumbaga, ito yung tinatawag nating saving grace na control. So, paano naging example yung supervision sa monitoring? As you can see, mga na-example ko sa inyo last time is about bank, diba? Like, yung vault, yung cash vault inside the main vault, yung alarm na pwedeng gamitin ni teller, ni service associate dun sa cash box niya. Now, as you can see, diba, nakakalusot pa rin eh. Kaya dami mong control pero nakakalusot pa rin. Ba't nagkakaroon pa rin ng bank robbery? So, ang magiging secondary control mo rito, ano kayang pwede? So, supervision monitoring. Best example dito is CCTV camera. So, as you can see, if you're gonna use CCTV camera na nga. Anyway, if you're gonna rely on CCTV device, it's not okay to consider it as a primary control because again, ang CCTV andyan lang yan. It won't totally mitigate yung risk, but it can help. It can help the primary control since ineffective na nga, nakalusot, nagkaroon ng bank robbery. Now, you have a CCTV device wherein you can watch yung mga nangyari for that day. So, therefore, it can help. It can help to correct the actions, to correct the risks, to identify yung kung sino man yung robbery na yun. Aside from that, mga guards. Technically, guards are really primary control. Kahit sang establishment pa yan, kahit saang company pa yan, guards are primary controls. Now, pansin nyo, bakit may tinatawag tayong roving guard or roving security guard? Or bakit meron tayong mga supervisor, yung si Bisor, yung si Bisor na naglilibot, siya yung pinupuntahan niya, nagra-random visit siya sa staff niya, sa mga security guard niya. Bakit? So, this is one of the secondary controls as supervision. So, si Bisor, nagra-random visit siya sa mga security guards. Since your security guards are your primary control, dapat may maglilibot, dapat may nag-oversee sa kanila. Tandaan nyo, even though marami kang guard, even the bank has guards, dalawang requirement kasi ng guard dapat sa bank, nakakalusot pa rin. Nagkakaroon pa rin ng bank robbery. Kaya dapat may supervision na Randomly, dapat nagvi-visit si head of security sa mga branches, sa mga establishments. So, if the primary control is ineffective, you guard ineffective, so the supervision can help. Pwede siya maging reliance mo for you to have a saving grace for the effectiveness of your primary control. I hope it's clear. Again, kay compensatory, primary ineffective, therefore you have another secondary control na compensatory control, your saving grace. And the last secondary control, we have complementary controls. So maybe you're kind of familiar with the word complement. Siguro kapag ano ka, if you're a member of a specific ano ba, if you are a gold member of whatever you call it, membership, kunwari SNR, mga ganyan, di ba nakaka-receive ka ng complimentary mga juices, mga drinks, mga food, and the likes. So, the same way, yun din yung concept ng complementary control here. I'll relate it with that. So, as stated here, work with other controls to reduce risk to an acceptable level. And ang example dito, segregation of duty of accounting and custody of cash is complemented by obtaining deposit slips validated by the bank. Ngayon, ang concept kanina ni compensatory control or ni mitigative control, kapag ineffective si primary, ibig sabihin you have a secondary control na saving grace. Dito, sa complementary controls, hindi ganon. Walang saving grace na concept. For complementary controls, it just helps the primary control to be effective. So, if you're saying your primary control is ineffective, therefore, ineffective na rin tong complementary controls mo. Kasi at the end of the day, complementary just complements, just helps your primary controls. Rinig niyo pusa ako. Sorry. I hope hindi narinig sa recording. Anyway, so how does it work? Sa example. So, segregation of duty, SOD, of accounting and custody of cash, is complemented. As you can see, yung segregation of duty is one of the... well, actually, I'll discuss it later, but fine. SOD, segregation of duty, is one of the primary controls. Ano to? This is preventive. Yes, preventive control. So, I'll discuss later yung functions ng SOD. Anyway, so, si SOD itself is a primary control. Now, if may issue sa SOD, then how can you rely dun sa tinatawag dating complementary control mo na obtaining deposit slips validated by the bank? Kung dun pa lang sa primary control, may tama na. So, nonsense din. So, what? Kung vinalidate siya ng bank, yung mga deposit slips mo, wala lang yun. Now, if you're gonna think of it, that document, that media, we call it media in banks, that media can help you to have an effective primary control. Kumbaga, tulong lang siya. Kumbaga, it can be another way for you to trace, for you to detect kung ano man yung possible na mangyari. And for you to say na, okay, na-validate siya ng bank, kanino, anong oras, and there. It just helps the primary control, which is your SOD. I hope it's clear. Dalawa lang naman ang secondary control. Again, it's compensatory and then complementary controls. Now, we have another classification of control. It's called time-based classification. So, how does it work? When you say time-based, it's, well, technically from timing, wherein kailan nag-take effect yung na-identify mong control. Kailan nag-take effect yung objective ng control. Now, for time-based classification, the first that we have is feedback controls. As stated here, report information about completed activities, corrective action occurs after the fact. And an example natin dito, inspection of completed goods. Okay, so from the word itself, feedback controls. So, ibig sabihin, nangyari na. So, the risk already happened. It's just that after the risk that happened, you have control na magi-implement na mangyayari. So, ang example dito is inspection of completed goods. As you can see, kapag nag-inspect ka ng goods, or maybe if you're doing inventory counts of your goods, your ending inventory of your items or your supplies, dun mo palang malalaman na may kulang, or dun mo palang malalaman na baka may damages yung mga inventory mo, yung supplies mo, nangyari na yung risks. Pwedeng either under ka or over yung count. Ang point nun, nangyari na yung risks. So, yung inspection, yung ending inventory count mo, that is a form of control. And it is classified as feedback control. Now, if you're gonna think of it, hindi ba parang familiar to dun sa na-discuss nating mga controls? Do you think it's kind of familiar? So, feedback control is also known as detective or corrective control. Yes. Why am I sharing this? Actually, this is one of the tricky choices and questions sa CIA exam. Actual to they are giving this time-based classification. When I was when I was a review with IQ, I really had a hard time to fully understand and to fully answer yung classification na to, ni time-based classification. Now, you just have to understand more yung logic behind and ano yung kapareha niya. For me, ito yung pinaka-best way for you to identify, feedback ito yan. So, ibig sabihin ito yun. So, just remember, feedback control is also known as detective or corrective control, either of them. So, ganito yan. So, nakita mo, example sa exam. Which of the following is a feedback control? Now, isipin mo, feedback. Feedback, ano yun, corrective detective. Pag corrective detective, either you're giving signal and then you're gonna correct the risks para ma-reduce na yung impact. And then ma-reduce din yung likelihood. So, for that, that's how you're gonna classify it. Suggestion ko, focus pa rin sa primary control, but then again, tricky questions and tricky answers, pumapasok tong time-based classification mo. So, okay, remember, feedback is also known as detective and corrective control. Next, time-based classification, we have concurrent controls. So, when you say concurrent, adjust ongoing processes, real-time controls, monitor activities in the present to prevent them from deviating too far from standards. So example here are close supervision or of production line workers. What do you think of this? If feedback control is also known as your detective and corrective control, ano kaya tong concurrent control? Concurrent. So, concurrent. Ibig sabihin, mangyayari na yung risk or nangyari na yung risk. It's concurrent. Nangyayari na. And then, you implement a specific action or specific control. So, it is also known as preventive control. So, just for easy understanding, preventive control is also known as concurrent control para mas madali nyo maintindihan. Okay? And then the last time-based classification, we have what we call the feed-forward control. It's stated here, anticipate and prevent problems, and it is a long-term perspective. Example here is policies and procedures. Okay, so let's repeat. Yung first natin for time-based classification is feedback control. When we say feedback control, nangyari na yung risks, so therefore you implement a specific action or specific control. So feedback is also known as detective or corrective control. Okay. Now, the second one, we have what we call the concurrent control. Wherein, pag sinabing concurrent, bago pa mangyari or nangyayari na yung control or nangyayari na yung risks, then saka papasok na implement mo yung control or yung action. And concurrent control is also known as preventive control. And then lastly, we have feed-forward control. What do you mean by feed-forward control? So kung may feedback nangyari na, si feed-forward is bago pa mangyari yung risks, may action ka na. Kaya ang example dito is policies and procedures. And it is a long-term perspective, di ba? So, ano to? So, again, feedback is detective and corrective. Concurrent is preventive. Now, we have feed-forward. This is also known as directive control. So, di ba nga, pag directive control, it is giving you directing you to the objective of a specific control. It helps you going to go there or not to go there. Kung ayaw man ng control na mapunta ka doon sa anumang yung objective niya. And at the end of the day again, you have the option to follow or not. That is why ang example dito, policies and procedures, which is the same with directive control. So those are just documents for provisions that you need to do this and then you won't or you don't need to do this. But for that, again, it's your call. It's your decision at the end of the day. Okay? So I hope it's clear. If you're gonna think of it, it's kinda easy to understand. I hope naintindihan nyo talaga fully. Yung time-based, just remember it against with the primary control.